All right, what's up, guys? Good morning and happy hump day. Wednesday, July 10th. July 10th. All right, let's jump in here. Got a few things to cover. Let me get y'all up to speed here. We're doing the 25 trade challenge in my mastery right now. And so far, we have 8 trades closed, 7 winners, 1 loser. And we got open trades here in T-Mobile and SMCI. So we're off to a good start. And then on the board here, we find ourselves in a pretty interesting spot. S&P's QQQ, tech stocks, semiconductors, they're very strong. They're also very overbought. S&P's got a 57 out of 60. QQQ a 53 out of 60. Dow Jones a 34. And then the RSP and the IWM, they've got negative scores. A little negativity in the RSP and the small caps. For the sectors here, we have XLY, XLF, SMH, Biotech, XLC, and XLK. They've all got a total score of 50 or better. Right? Very respectable. While Bitcoin, industrials, XLB, the transports, and energy, they are sucking a little wind. For the big boys, Apple is the king. 58 out of 60. Nvidia a 52. Meta and AMD a 50. And the bottom end here would be Netflix and Microsoft. Again, it's an interesting spot. If we take the S&Ps, for example, and we check the big 3 score on the monthly, weekly, and daily timeframes, they've all got the perfect score at 12. Right? So trend, structure, momentum, everything pretty much as bullish as possible. At the same time, though, the monthly, weekly, and the daily, they're all at or above the 3 ATR extension. So they're very strong, but they're also 3 to 3.5 average true range moves above the 21 EMA buy zone, which can make putting on new swing trades, a little bit tricky. Overbought in the short term can just be a sign of strength. And we've all seen an overbought market turn into a much more overbought market. But at the same time, when you're up here at 2.5 to 3.5 ATR, it's a spot where probabilities-wise, things might lose a little steam. And a little back and forth, potentially a pullback, would not be the craziest thing. As I check the multi-time frame signals here, we've got no sell signals. If I wake up and we've got a 2-hour, 1-hour, 30-minute sell signal, and the monthly, weekly, and daily charts are this overbought, all right, yeah, at that point, there might be room for a flush. We can be overbought. If I've got no sell signals and nothing but buy signals, they might want to keep on taking that higher. Right, same thing here for the Qs. The monthly, the weekly, the daily, they've all got the perfect score. Right, they're all as bullish as possible. And they're all at or above that 3 ATR. If I get some sell signals, might be time for a flush, which I happen to think would be a gift. I'd love to buy a pullback. But until I get a sell signal, we might be overbought, but I really can't call for a move lower. And to quote my good friend Henry, nothing bearish about a market at brand new all-time highs. Respect how strong we are. Also respect the fact that in the short term, we're a little bit extended. Doesn't mean you blindly go and short the market. Just be smart about how you get long. Right, be mindful of your risk. Maybe cut back your position size. Maybe give your trades a little more time to expiration. Maybe lean a bit more into a strategy with really good risk reward. But that is where we find ourselves. Very strong, very overbought. And then, frankly, the breadth kind of sucks, which has really been the theme here. It's not as if the entire market is super strong. It's about 5, maybe 10 stocks. All right, big tech, big semis, all those big, heavily weighted names. They're keeping the ship afloat. Energy, pretty trashy. Transport's pretty trashy. The industrials, Bitcoin, they're not too hot. A big part of the strength here is tech and semis. But with all that being said, we got a couple trades open here. And then one more thing I want to show you first. We've got ourselves a busy few days coming up, jam-packed on the economic calendar. This morning, 9 a.m. Central, so a half hour after the open, we have the pleasure of hearing from Jerome Powell, the one and the only JP. So JP at 9 o'clock today, and then tomorrow, we've got the jobless claims and the CPI report at 7:30. And then on Friday, we have the PPI report also at 7:30. Jam-packed, shall not be dull. But all right, so for our open trades here, we've got T-Mobile and SMCI. I'll show you T-Mobile first. Here's a key for T-Mobile. Actually, I'll show you Google first. Notice the pattern here on the 4-hour squeeze. Let me get my drawing tool. All right, so Google gets this 4-hour squeeze pretty much all throughout back here. And you'll notice we have good trend, we have good structure, right? 21 above the 50, all that good stuff. We don't actually get that big move until momentum crosses back above zero. All right, we got the momentum line down here. With a squeeze and momentum below zero, it's a lot more of a big chop fest. Right, little pop, little drop, a lot of back and forth. They finally get that big directional move when momentum supports a move higher. Tough to fire the 4-hour squeeze until you get that positive cross. Right. Another example would be Netflix. You've got this big 4-hour squeeze back here for Netflix. When the squeeze starts, you've got momentum below zero. A little up, a little down, a lot of back and forth. Momentum crosses positive. Then the squeeze takes off. So for T-Mobile here, that is pretty much the key. That's TSM. T-Mobile. There we go. It's a very similar pattern to back here. Compression on the 4-hour. They're building up energy for a big move. You don't get a big move higher until momentum supports that. Until momentum supports that, best case scenario, just a lot of back and forth. So here we are. We got a brand new 4-hour squeeze, and again, a pretty similar pattern. Trend is bullish. The structure is bullish. We're getting compression. We're getting a buildup of energy from the 4-hour squeeze. In most situations, they can't fire that to the upside until they get that momentum cross. And I think for T-Mobile in the short term, that's pretty much the key. If they do get that momentum cross and they pull the MACD back above zero, I think a pretty good chance a 4-hour squeeze at least takes it back towards the previous highs here. Call it 183. If they can't get the positive cross, you probably don't get that big move. So we got some calls here, and that's pretty much all I'm looking for. 4-hour squeeze, good trend, good structure. If they can add some good momentum to the mix here, I like it for a push towards 183-ish. So we got the calls there, and then SMCI. A little downgrade this morning. Frankly, I don't think the end all be all. If you're long and you get an upgrade, right, doesn't guarantee the trade works. If you're long and then the stock it hits at the downgrade, Doesn't guarantee the trade falls apart. We've got the daily squeeze here and the white dots. And we've got the 950 1000 call debit spread for next Friday. Shorter term swing. The only thing I'm looking for here from SMCI would be a push into 950-ish. If we can catch that in the next 2, 3 to 4 days, should be good for about a 50, maybe 60% profit on the debit spread. Now that's shorter term. Bigger picture, and this is very much more down the road. We've got the slingshot squeeze here on the weekly. Very much like we had back here. So the blue arrow says you've got your squeeze, you have bull trend, you have bull structure. You've pretty much got an A- setup. It's not A+ just yet, but you're getting very close. Squeeze, trend, and structure. Only thing missing is momentum. From the blue arrow, if they can get that momentum cross, that can lead to a nice move out of that squeeze. So it's a similar setup, and I also like the pattern here. Slingshot squeeze, momentum crosses, big leg to the upside, pull back to the buy zone, brand new squeeze, good trend, good structure. At any point over the next 1, 2, 3 to 4 weeks, if they get that positive cross, I think it's fair game for a move towards 1200 here. Again, not an idea for today, but I would definitely keep an eye on that bigger weekly squeeze. But we got the debit spread here. We are long T-Mobile. And then a few things I'm keeping an eye on. One would be Amazon. Now, admittedly for Amazon, it's a tricky spot to buy it. But I'll show you what I do like. What I do like is they just fired the 3-day squeeze. They build up all the energy through April, May, June, into July, and now the squeeze just fires. Better yet, the squeeze just fires on a fresh momentum cross. You're getting that big release of energy on essentially a full tank of gas for the bulls. 3-day squeeze just fired. And then even better, although we've gotten a nice move here, they've got this big weekly squeeze that hasn't fired just yet. The weekly squeeze is still building up energy. In most cases, there should be room for a bit more upside here. If they do fire that weekly squeeze, I think a pretty good probability they're taking Amazon towards 210-ish. If the QQQ doesn't crater, I think at some point they'll get the job done. Now, what's tricky about it is the entry. If I've got this weekly squeeze and we've got price right near that 21 EMA, it's a much, much easier entry. We did that back here. Squeeze, brand new white dot, and we did a called debit spread. We're not at the weekly buy zone. We are not at the daily buy zone. And then more importantly, we're right up on a huge level. Right? Everyone and their mama and their mama's mama, they're watching Amazon here at $200. Spot gamma call wall, big round number, big psychological level, right? Big sexy target. It's the only thing that makes it a little tricky. If 200 proves to be a bit more of a brick wall, then buying it right here at 200 might be tough. If they can take it through 200 with a vengeance, with a little bit of oomph, I think they're about an inch away from firing that bigger weekly squeeze, which again, I think could take Amazon towards 210. I've just got to find a spot to buy it. And if I want to buy it right at 200, what I would look for would be a 1 hour, 30-minute, 15-minute squeeze with the white dot. If I could get an A plus squeeze on a 15-minute, 30-minute, 1 hour, even right at 200, that might be worth a shot. So keeping an eye on the ZON. And then another interesting one here is Nvidia. It's another example of that slingshot pattern. It's not an A plus setup, but we can call it an A minus setup. Blue dot here on the squeeze histogram. Compression from the daily squeeze. Okay, we're building up energy. The trend is bullish. The structure is bullish. We're waiting on momentum. If we do get that positive cross, not a guarantee, but pretty strong chance. They want to take that daily squeeze, fire that to the upside, and potentially kick off a move back towards 140-ish. The slingshot daily squeeze. And then if we drop down to the 4 hour, same setup, same pattern here on the 4 hour. And if anything, for now, I would watch the 4 hour. The daily squeeze could lead to a bigger move. The bigger the time frame, the bigger the move. The 4 hour squeeze here, we are right on the cusp, right on the verge of that momentum cross. Momentum back through zero. We get the buy signal, we get the white dot, and then we've got a really solid 4 hour squeeze. Doesn't mean that the trade works, but it would check all the boxes. 4 hour squeeze on Nvidia. If we get the white dot, in a good market, you can play that back towards 140-ish. And then Netflix is up next. Same exact idea here for Netflix. 4 hour squeeze. You get the early heads up there with the slingshot. Momentum crosses. Off goes Netflix. And now here we are again. Brand new 4 hour squeeze. They're trying to pull momentum higher. Today, tomorrow, any point this week, any point next week, if they get that momentum cross. I think you take your 4 hour squeeze here. You play for a push into the $700 call wall. Frankly, the 4 hour squeeze could make for a bigger move than 700. But I think as far as Netflix goes, that's your next big target. Watch for the momentum cross. So I like Netflix, I like Nvidia, I like Amazon, and then Meta. So Meta here is a little fickled. Beautiful move on Friday. We had the white dot here on the daily squeeze. And I think as of yesterday, no, not yet. They haven't fired the weekly squeeze just yet. Same pattern, though. It's not an A plus setup right now. Back here you had the white dot. The perfect weekly squeeze. And that certainly got the job done. Not perfect just yet. But again, that blue arrow, that's our first heads up. All right. I've got 4 things I'm looking for. All right, squeeze, trend, structure. That is some nasty handwriting. And Momo. Every trade I take, I'm looking for the same 4 things. Compression from the squeeze. The trend of the chart supports a move higher. The structure of the chart supports a move higher. And the momentum supports a move higher. When we get the blue arrow, we've got 3 out of 4. We've got squeeze, we've got trend, we've got structure. We're waiting on momentum. You get momentum, you get the white dot. A+ setup. If they can take the weekly squeeze here from Meta and turn that into an A+ setup, we have a target up here around 575-ish, which I, for one, would love to catch. Now, the entry here, it's a bit like Amazon, a little tricky. In hindsight, of course, the perfect spot to buy it would have been back here 510, 515-ish, somewhere in that daily squeeze. You buy it back here on the second or the third, you're off to a great start. Big push on Friday, and now we're getting a little back test here of the previous highs. 531, 532. I think in the short term, as far as, can we get a push higher out of that weekly squeeze? The previous highs back here from April, mark that up as a pretty big over-under level. If they can keep it above the previous highs, not a guarantee, but a pretty good chance, they can look for higher prices from that beautiful weekly squeeze. If they break it below the previous highs and they keep it below the previous highs, weekly squeeze might fire eventually. Might not happen as quick as we would like. But very much like Amazon, it already made a nice move, still hasn't fired that weekly squeeze. In a good market, I think eventually they both fire to the upside. That could take Amazon towards 210, and that could take Meta towards 575. And that's about the bulk of my watch list here. One more thing I do want to show you, the financials. And I believe on Friday, the banks kick off earnings with JP Morgan. If you do trade the banks here, definitely keep an eye on JP Morgan. If earnings are just phenomenal, that could be great for the entire group. If earnings are a total disaster, may not be good for the total group here. But on the XLF, not the perfect weekly squeeze, but we do have a decent weekly squeeze. Down here on the daily, not A+, but a very solid daily squeeze. And then over here on the 4-hour, the 4-hour squeeze just fired. Now, keep in mind, this has not been leadership. Leadership has been tech, semis, and a little communications. Has not been the financials, but they've got a few bigger time frame squeezes here. That might kick off the run towards earnings. Check out a name like BAC, and that just fired a daily squeeze. Goldman, that daily squeeze fired yesterday. And then JP Morgan, that daily squeeze actually fired about a week ago. But again, JP has earnings on Friday. So I think it's very much a run into earnings kind of idea. But interesting nonetheless. And then Uber, a little bit off the beaten path. Really solid daily squeeze. The level they have to break, the 4-hour 200. Notice every time they pop it, they can't keep it above that 4-hour 200. Until they can do that, it might be the best looking daily squeeze ever. If they can't get it above that 4-hour resistance, you probably don't see that daily squeeze fire to the upside. So a little patience on the Uber. But all right, y'all, that is what I got for you. I am long T-Mobile. I am long the SMCI. And like I said, just respect where we are in the market. There's a time for aggressiveness. And then there's a time for, you still look for opportunity. You still put cash to work. You don't pump the brakes, but you slow things down a little bit. Perfect example. If we're at a point in time where the S&Ps are doing this, okay, we're all the way back here. We've got a daily squeeze. We're near the buy zone. We've got the white dot. That's my favorite thing in the world. Never mind the stocks, never mind my watch list. The market itself, the S&Ps, they've got the A plus squeeze here on the daily chart. Pretty good heads up. They might be gearing up for a big move. Now, what's the significance of that? If the S&Ps can fire a daily squeeze, we can get some action like this. A very nice move to the upside. As goes the market, goes the stocks. If I want a day trade, if I want a swing trade, no better time to do that than when the S&Ps have just fired a daily squeeze. Even better. Go back a few weeks ago, and the QQQ, we've got this beautiful weekly squeeze. Weekly squeeze, white dot, fires to the upside, and we get about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus weeks of some really good action to the upside. Wind at our back. Whether it be a 1 hour squeeze, whether it be a 4 hour, a daily, or a weekly squeeze, when the S&Ps and the QQQ can fire a squeeze, what that gives you as a trader is a lot of wind at your back. The QQQ and the S&Ps going higher, they tend to take most things with them. So that point in time, that's where I'm trying to be as aggressive as possible. Not stupid, but I'm being aggressive within reason. Bigger size, right? More aggressive with my strategy selection, more aggressive with my strike selection. Again, a lot of wind at my back. Then we hit a point in time where, probabilities wise, we're closer to the end of the move than we are to the beginning of the move. And I'm not going to call for a huge pullback here, but I would argue we are a lot closer to the end of the push than we are to the beginning of the push. Daily squeeze fired, and for the most part, we've ran for a month and change. You can't really ask for much more from a daily squeeze. QQQ weekly squeeze, right, did exactly what it should. Built up the energy, it fired, it took price right towards our target. I'm not saying it's going to pull back. I'm not saying we can't keep on going higher. But there's such thing as the easy part of the move and the tail end of the move. I think we've already seen the easy part of the move. So mind your risk, be patient, be disciplined. And then above all else, we're in a bull market. If we pull back to an hourly 21, if we pull back to a daily 21, I don't think the end of the world. I would treat it as a gift from the market gods. But all right, y'all, any questions, anything you want to take a peek at, let me know here in the chat, and I'll see what you got. Tiny little gap up coming for Nvidia. And then the one they call Tesla. Tesla's had a decent move. Not too shabby. Not too shabby on the Tesla. Yeah, HCP. So for a path into 950 on SMCI, I would like to see a close above 900. We haven't gotten that just yet. Bruce, TGTX. TGTX. What's that? A target for adults only? TGTX. It's made a nice move off that daily squeeze, but now you're also coming up on big resistance. The weekly 200 SMA. Notice back here, big push right towards that weekly 200. And that was pretty much all she wrote. Right? They pop it above weekly resistance and they spank it right back down. Now, granted, this time around, it is a much better setup. Squeeze, buy signal, 21 back above the 50. It looks a lot better. But until proven otherwise, that could continue to be a big spot of resistance. If they can break it and keep it above the weekly 200, then I think the odds would favor they can take that weekly squeeze and fire that puppy to the upside. Good morning, Scotty. EPD. I like what I see so far. White dot squeeze on the weekly. So the weekly is an A plus setup. The 3-day squeeze, very close. Very close to being A plus. 4-hour squeeze is A plus. The 1-hour squeeze is A plus. And we're stacking them up here. 30-minute squeeze, also A plus. So 30-minute, 1-hour, 4-hour, weekly. They've got all the bells and whistles. Checking all the boxes. Momentum, compression, trend, structure. And that can make for a beautiful sight. Never guarantees the trade works. But the one thing we can take from that is 1, 2, 3, 4 different time frames. They've got all the characteristics of what can make for a big explosive move. And that should be where we keep our focus. That kind of moment in time. I like the EPD. I like it. And yeah, then we take it a step further. It's a really good setup. Is it a good setup in a good sector? That combination tends to make for the best trades. I'm getting long in a bull market. I'm getting long on an A plus squeeze. And the stock I'm buying belongs to a really strong sector. If EPD is energy, then we've got some much needed context here. Energy comes in dead last. Total score of negative 32. So it's not, the banks, it's not big tech, the semiconductors, it's energy. And we go take a peek at energy. And yeah, we're maybe at support, the daily 200 SMA. But the thing's a little bit rough around the edges. Score of -6, a lot of sell signals. And I think that's something we should always take into consideration. EPD's got a great setup. The neighborhood it belongs to, a little bit sketchy. Doesn't mean that EPD can't work. But if anything, at the very least, just something to keep in mind. All right, Trend Scalper, good morning. TTD. Yeah, this one's shaping up nicely. TTD. We've got the white dot here on the daily squeeze. And a decent little breakout yesterday. 2-day squeeze, white dot. 4-hour squeeze also has the white dot. 3 different time frames, compression, trend, structure, momentum. You've got a trio of A plus squeezes here. Yeah, I've got to like it. I have got to like it. Let's see the weekly. Yeah, and the weekly chart is bullish. It got bull on the weekly. And then earnings are on the 7th of August. So you got some time here. You've got ample time. And then Ethan's got some General Electric. There could be potential here from the 4-hour squeeze. But I don't love the daily chart. 5 out of 12. No buy signal. Momentum below 0. 21 EMA below the 50 SMA. Play the game of comparison, right? Google had a 4-hour squeeze, and that led to a nice move. Google also had a much better looking daily chart. So for GE here, at the moment, I would keep a lot of the focus on that 4-hour squeeze. The bulls maintain control of the 4-hour. Good morning, Kurt. Kurt has got EA Sports. It is in the game. EA Sports. Daily squeeze looks good. Daily squeeze looks good. Couple white dots for you. And then on the 4-hour chart, again, here's the key. Can they get that momentum cross? If they can get 4-hour momentum back above 0, that turns our 4-hour squeeze into an A+ setup. They can then take that setup, and there's a much better chance they can fire it to the upside. If they can fire the 4-hour squeeze to the upside, there could be a domino effect here where they then go fire that daily squeeze. From there, you get a nice little push. So keep an eye on that 4-hour. All right, folks on YouTube, let me jump over here. Good morning, good morning. All right, Adam, Alan, Greg, good morning. Daniel, good morning from Hamburg. Good to see y'all. Okay, Daniel, what do I think about the RSP being bearish? Yeah, that's a great question. So on the scoring system here, we've got a pretty big divergence between the SPX and the RSP. SPX, of course, the S&P 500 on a weighted basis, meaning 20% of the S&P 500 is like 5 or 6 stocks. Apple, Google, Nvidia, Amazon, Microsoft, right? The big dogs. While the RSP, that is the equal weighted index. 500 names from the S&Ps, but they're all equal. Amazon no bigger than Procter & Gamble. So the RSP gives you a bit more of a realistic look at the market as far as a total picture. The RSP can't be influenced by 4 or 5 heavily weighted names. So what's happening here? We have a total score of 57 on the SPX and a total score of -10 on the RSP. That's a pretty big difference, right? Pretty big divergence. What that tells me is the entire market is not super strong. It's not a case where financials, energy, healthcare, industrials, communications, semiconductors, technology, they're all kicking. It's a little bit the opposite. Energy, transports, materials, industrials, Bitcoin, they all kind of lag behind. Utilities, healthcare, XLP, right? They're a little bit more neutral. And then XLY, financials, tech, SMH, they kind of run the show here. So the S&Ps look better than the RSP because of the nature of the weighting. The things that are performing really well right now, They just so happen to make up a big chunk of the SPX. And that can create that divergence. If everything was bullish, the RSP would have a much better total score. What does that mean to me in the short term? Focus on leadership. I can't wake up and just buy anything. I'm not in that kind of market. I can't go buy energy. I can't rush into healthcare. I can't go buy Bitcoin. I've got to focus on leadership. That limited leadership, that's keeping the entire ship afloat right now. And maybe I'll see some rotation. Maybe the breadth will improve. But in the short term, that's what I can take from that. We've got 5, 10, 15 names keeping the entire market above water. Until something changes, that's where I should focus. And from there, what I would like to see from the RSP, a little progress. Maybe turn that frown upside down. A little progress would not hurt. All right, folks, a couple more questions and then I'll let you go here. Greg, is a white dot indicator a little late on the trade? No. Now, granted, sometimes you'll get the white dot, and the ship might have sailed as far as a great entry. So my goal for a great trade, I want to find that white dot squeeze right near that 21 EMA. If you look at TSM from last week, we bought TSM on this candle right here. Then we caught the push, then the squeeze fired, then we took the paycheck. 4-hour squeeze here for Microsoft. We got long on the white dot on this candle. Then we caught the push. Now, there might be a situation like Amazon, for example. Well, no, not Amazon. There might be a situation like maybe LRCX. No, not a great example. Point being, there will be times where when I finally get the white dot, price might be a little bit too far above that 21 for a great entry. And at that point, I'll typically pass on the trade. I want to find something like Uber. I'm getting my white dot. I've got the A+ setup, but I'm right up near that buy zone, as opposed to 2 to 3 ATR above it. That's my sweet spot. White dot squeeze, lock in my entry as close to that 21 EMA as possible, and then we ride the wave from there. But all right, folks, the market is open. I've got to keep an eye on a few trades here. We've got AMD, Nvidia with some green. And we got Jerome Powell in about 30 minutes. Shall not be dull. But as always, thank you for all the time and effort. I appreciate y'all being here. For those of you in the Essentials room, I will see you at 11:30. And for the rest of you, I will see you in a video tonight. Gonna upload a brand new video to the YouTube channel tonight. But hey, have a great day. Go kick some ass, and I'll talk to you